I went sideways the other day in a retail park in this car. All I did was tickle the gas to pull out of a parking space. I mean, my granny would have gone sideways in it. It's that sort of thing.
Our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So check the video description for full details and to enter.
So it looks like my cheap Aston adventure might be coming to an end. I'm taking the car now to our secret project car storage facility down in Kent. I'm going to swap it for a Porsche 944 of all things, so well, let's see how that compares to the British car. So what's it been like, life with the Aston, or more importantly, life with the UK's cheapest Aston? Well, the Aston people can send the hate mail to the usual address, but do you know, it reminds me of a 90s Alpha. Looks lovely, goes well, sounds great, but there's always something slightly wrong with it. Different warning light on every time you go out, that sort of thing. Always a squeak or a rattle or something you need to do. It is viciously fast in a straight line, this car. I mean, it really is. 420 horsepower, even with the automatic, it, you know, in sport mode it picks up and it really goes. But apart from that, I've found myself, I'm not really warming to the car. It really is an odd combination of things, this car. I really like an XJS, and this is of course based on an XJS, but somehow I don't think it's as good as an XJS in many ways. I don't think it knows whether it's a Grand Tourer or a sports car. I mean, it's so quick, but when it comes to the handling, it's a little bit ponderous, to be honest, a bit boat-like, and I don't know where it is in the marketplace, and its build quality is terrible, and that's where the 90s Alpha analogy comes in again. I mean, it is awful, really. All the Ford bits that everyone joked about, and all the Mazda bits, they've lasted perfectly well. They've lasted the 20 years quite happily, and they still do what they're meant to do. But all the Aston bits are a bit sort of shambly, like the veneers coming off, and the leather's not lasted so well, and it's funny, there really is no room in this car. I'm just over 6 foot, my head's nearly on the ceiling. The seat doesn't go up and down, the steering wheel moves up and down, doesn't go in and out, and even if you do want to move the seat forwards and backwards, you have to lift the handbrake lever first because the buttons are hidden behind it. I mean, ergonomics are terrible. The back seats, really, I mean, do not buy a DB7 on the basis of the back seats and think you might be able to get your kids in there, because unless they're newborn, you've got no chance. And here we come back to the Alphas again. You know, I've bought Alphas knowing full well what they're like, and I've loved them. So, if you want a DB7, what can you expect? Well, first of all, I think you need to dispel any kind of a myth that these cars can only be worked on by specialists and they're so high-end and so exotic that, you know, you daren't touch them yourself. Nonsense. You've got to be brave enough to get stuck in with the spanners. They're nuts and bolts like any other car, and yes, the engine may be a step too far for the average home mechanic. If something major goes wrong, basic servicing, why not? Change the oil, change the filter. But everything else on the car, well, those Ford and Jaguar bits, they play to your advantage, really. I've had the door card off this car in 10 minutes. 3 bolts, a couple of clips, same as doing the job on a Fiesta. You might remember it came with the ABS light glowing merrily, which meant we didn't have any traction control either. I fixed both of those things with a new ABS sensor and soldered up the link wire for that. But it hasn't let us down, this car. Never left us stranded. I put a new battery on it during the cold snap this winter. The last one was on its legs, really, and the cold weather just finished it off. But you can't blame that on Aston Martin, can you? The wheels had been refurbished, but they'd put the old cracked, perished, aged tyres on it. We fitted a pair of tyres. That's $350 for the pair. But a car like this, with this much power, you really want good tyres on it. And there I come to another aspect of ownership. These are hard work to live with in terms of driving. It's something of an unlikely hot rod. You might expect Aston Martin to be more along the lines of a cultured, refined Grand Tourer, but it's really not. It's leery, this car. It's fast, as I say, in a straight line, in the dry. But in the wet, even with the traction control working, it's all over the place. It's an old-fashioned Ford system. The electronics just aren't quite quick enough to curb the wheel spin immediately, so it always lets it spin a little bit before it grips. So if you're trying to pull out of a side turning on a wet morning, say into fast-moving rush hour traffic, you've got to wait for someone to flash you out. If you just boot it and go for a gap, you'll go nowhere, you know, and you're going to get people hooting at you. I went sideways the other day in a retail park in this car. All I did was tickle the gas to pull out of a parking space. I mean, my granny would have gone sideways in it. It's that sort of thing. everything. So if you like that sort of thing, it's great fun. I mean, you know, if you want to drift it round a roundabout, turn off the traction control, and I can tell you she's very controllable. They're the sort of car though you've got to be committed to, and I think if you aren't at all practical, you can expect it to be an expensive ownership proposition. But if you're happy to get stuck in, you're not frightened to get the spanners out and, you know, find out how things come apart, do your research, find out what Ford and Jaguar bits fit, you can save an awful lot of money. And the only things that are going to cost you are the few Aston specific items that are expensive. The door seals are 600 quid each. You can get used ones for 60, 70 quid, but you know, you've got to use your judgment as to whether they're better than what you've taken off. The blower fans, they're 1,000 quid each, although they are XJS parts, so you've always got the option of buying second-hand ones at less money. In some ways, it'll never be cheap, but in other ways, as I say, if you're prepared to get stuck in, if you're prepared to do a little bit yourself, attend to the small jobs, you know, you can keep it up to scratch yourself at home quite easily, and it's quite satisfying. And certainly when you find the odd Jaguar part that's a tenth the price of what Aston want for the same component, you know, there's a real joy to be had there. You've got to expect for there to always be something that needs doing, whether it's a squeak or a rattle or something's not quite right, something doesn't quite line up, or something needs attending to. You know, there'll always be something to keep you busy with it. That is, if you want to keep it up to scratch, and if you don't keep on top of it, then it will start to get shabby and rattle and squeak, and things will stop working. But if you really want an Aston Martin, it is affordable. As I say, if you're prepared to do a little bit yourself and nothing major goes wrong with the engine or gearbox, you know, you have a real supercar there for affordable money.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link in the video description to enter their latest competition.